Native American boarding schools were established all over the country in the 1800s. Richard Henry Pratt, the founder of the Carlisle Indian School, envisioned Native children integrated into the white community. One way he sought to achieve this was to place students in homes of white patron families to learn domestic skills or a trade. This model became known as the outing program. Pratt believed that Native children had a right to live successful lives through assimilation, and it was his responsibility to provide that education for the students. We will explore the rights and responsibilities of white and Native descendants who are involved in the outing program.
Richard Henry Pratt and the white families who were patrons of the outing program believed that Native students had a right to an education so that they could live successful lives through assimilation, and it was their responsibility to provide that opportunity. Today, it is understood that Indian boarding schools like Carlisle were a form of cultural genocide that has consequences on Native culture even today. By exploring Catherine Jane McCrae, a patron mother from Newville, PA, and two Carlisle Indian School descendants with their perspectives of rights and responsibilities. Established in 1879 by Richard Henry Pratt. Pratt was a general in the U.S. Army and founded the school to assimilate Native American children. This was an alternative to mass genocide. Carlisle was chosen as the place to have the school because there were no Native tribes in the area, so children who ran away from the school had nowhere to go. As Pratt famously said, "Kill the Indian in him and save the man." Upon arriving at Carlisle, their rights were further eliminated by cutting their hair, changing out of their traditional clothing, and leaving behind their cultural responsibilities. Their right to speak their own language was also extinguished by being placed in dormitories with others from different tribes, so the only shared language was English. During the time the school was open, nearly 7,800 children from over 140 tribes passed through the school from 1879 to 1918.
The outing program was an attempt to encourage good behavior and assimilation at the same time. The outing program was established by Richard Henry Pratt. 25 Newville families participated, some hosting multiple children. The goal of the outing program was for students to develop a trade such as carpenter or domestic. While in outing, girls were responsible for things such as cooking, sewing, cleaning, and laundry. Boys were mainly responsible for things such as farming or repairing machinery.
Catherine Jane Weist McCrae was a Newville resident and an educated woman ahead of her time. She graduated from Newville High School in 1887, graduated from and taught Latin at the Metzger Institute, an all-girls school in Carlisle. She taught at the Carlisle Indian School prior to her marriage. From 1902 to 1916, 21 girls spent time at the McCraes as part of the outing program. Seeing as she was highly educated, Jane viewed it as a right to be given an opportunity for education. According to her grandchildren, the students were treated not just as servants, but family members, because she believed it was their right to be treated fairly, and it was an opportunity to improve their situation in life.
When students were staying with the McCraes, they ate with the family, had rooms on the second floor with the other children. Annual reports from the time indicate that Miss McCrae was a viewed trainer by the Carlisle Indian School, meaning she may have taken in students who need extra help assimilating. The time students stayed with the McCrae family varied greatly from student to student, the longest being just shy of 21 months, the shortest just being 10 days. One reason the McCraes hosted so many students is that Miss McCrae believed it was the students' right to receive an education and to be treated fairly. As an educated woman and teacher, it was her responsibility to provide that opportunity. Additionally, Miss McCrae may have relied heavily upon the girls for help around the house on account of having a large family in a short amount of time.
And they were made a part of the family. They weren't mistreated, certainly. My aunts would say that often they and the Indian girl who was living with them would go to downtown Newville and shop or visit or do something down there with them.
In acknowledging my great-grandmother's involvement, I do not wish to dishonor her heart. Rather, I hope to hold both realities, the individual acts of hospitality and the broader system of erasure in which those acts were embedded. I wish to pay my tribute to the outing system, not so much of what it has done for the Indian, but for what that long list of dear girls, I believe there are 20 of them, has meant to me and my family during the past 19 years in lessons of patience, quietness, faithfulness, and love. My heart goes out to them, all scattered as they are from north to south and east to west, in prayer that their burdens may not be too heavy and that their memories of the days spent with us may be pleasant. I would like to go over the whole list, pausing long enough to give a line of praise to each one for her own peculiar worth. I want to bear testimony to the unfailing kindness of the superintendents, whose outing patron I have been, which has been so constant that when others have spoken to me of the great help they have had in uncles, aunts, and grandparents in rearing their children, I have always said, my helper has been the Carlisle Indian School. If my children fail to measure up to the standards I have set for them, then the school must share a little of the blame, and if they take their places in the world as worthy citizens, much credit is due the school, whose girls received into my home as one of us have helped me carry out my ideals for them. Wherever they are, God bless them all.
Mary Marcotte of the Chitimacha tribe was one of the girls to stay with Mrs. McCrae. The Chitimacha tribe, from the Mississippi River Delta region of south-central Louisiana, assimilated early in America's colonization, and as a result, they managed to keep a small portion of their native land. However, in the early 1900s, the time that Mrs. McCrae was an outing patron, the tribe dealt with racism, constant attempts to steal the remaining land, as well as shootings on the reservation. Aaron Daniels, cultural instructor for the Chitimacha tribe and a relative of Mary Marcotte, shared that the tribe also believed there is information to suggest that the Chitimacha tribe was also being poisoned by the surrounding community, though they were never able to prove it. Chitimacha's unique situation, in contrast to the reservation system experienced by Western tribes, offers a unique perspective to the boarding school legacy. The tribe was responsible for protecting themselves, so they willingly sent children to Carlisle because it was safer than their current situation. While Mary stayed at the McCraes, she received a negative report, but she had no mother, so she just didn't know how to act. Regardless of the intent of the outing program, the Chitimacha believed that some good things happened at Carlisle, even though their cultural rights were erased.
I can imagine, even now having a young child, whose parents are different, go into a home that's, maybe very strict or everything's done a certain way, how that would feel even in our, today's world. So in that setting, I can imagine how difficult it was just to be rejected completely just because of who you were and what family you were born into.
Many changes took place in the lives of Native peoples. The outing program caused many negative feelings. Now, the boarding schools are viewed with shameful lenses. This controversial topic has caused many mixed feelings. Changes that have happened since the Carlisle Indian School closed have brought about this new perspective, that the boarding schools did more harm than good. For instance, Pratt and Jane McCrae truly believed that they were doing the right thing, fulfilling their responsibility as educators while giving the students the education they had a right to receive. However, this was actually an attempt to stamp out Native culture.
To the industrial work, to the work that was very gender specific too. And so I always think about how our Native peoples, I've heard different stories about some people really enjoying it and some people having really difficult times, being with families because of course how they were treated. And I don't know, again, it's this varying experience with the outing program, but I think you got to look at it from the scope of that it was a tool to assimilate our Native people into the mainstream culture. So I personally have issues with that because, again, the whole point was to culturally eradicate our people. But I do know, again, it goes back to that resilience and that innate endurance that our Native people had, where absolutely they navigated these spaces in the best way that they knew how to. And I respect that.